Okay, great. So, I'm going to talk very shortly, just have a slide or two, and then I'm going to immediately go into demoing the software that I'm talking about. So, throughout the day, you kind of heard this ongoing theme that, for certain students we teach, whether they're executives or MBAs, it's often difficult for us to push them into R. And as a result, my colleague, who's a professor in marketing, he developed a software Shiny application. Oh, I think it is on. Right? I need to speak louder. Okay. So he ended up building a Shiny application which sits on top of R and just makes a lot of the things that you want to teach MBAs and execs extremely easy. Okay, so that's kind of the premise here. He did it for his course, Research for Marketing Decisions, and then it happened that we lost perhaps our best teacher at Rady, went to MIT to lead their Leaders for Global Operations program, and he had been teaching our quantitative analysis core class for many years. And so we had this opportunity to, can we bring that type of technology into the core quant class? And that's what we did. In addition, this year is the first year for our MSBA, and so we were trying to think, can we also do something for them? And so I'm going to kind of give you that perspective as we go. If this, through the talk, something that's really interesting to you, you can download it. My colleague, he pretty much programmed everything, and he made everything available under AGPL. So if you wanted to extend it to do new features and whatever you want, I think you'll be pretty impressed by what's already in there. But it's free, open source, so you can run with it. To be honest, that was also one of the drivers. He was a little bit, I'd say annoyed maybe is too strong of a word, but when he uses technologies that students can't take with them without having to suddenly pay for, it just seemed like not the same amount of return on his efforts in what he was doing in the class. So he wanted something they could definitely take with them, and so that was kind of driving it. Okay. And so as I said, this is a Shiny application, so many of you guys are already familiar with that. Within RStudio, if you went through the installation process, it's really just going to launch as an add-in. So you'll see I have Radiant in there, and so it's just going to launch, hopefully. Yeah, and so it's basically a web application. Let me kind of go back to the main screen because I was just in it. This is where you would launch to, and so the default data set is just a diamonds data set, which is already kind of preloaded. You can bring any data that you want into the application through this means right here. And again, start thinking like, okay, I'm teaching an MBA student how to do some analysis. This is the level that they're going to sit at. So very quickly, we've already got data in here. If I just wanted to build a simple histogram, which often, if you're working in Excel, that's kind of a pain in the butt. It's a couple of clicks of the mouse, right? And we're already looking at, here I've got the diamond data, so I'm looking price, carat, clarity, cut, just different things that are obviously important to diamonds. And so again, instead of focusing on we got to learn technology, we're already starting to think about data and try to gain some insight. So here, again, very easily, I can make a scatter plot of price versus carat. We see that. If I wanted to just, color the different data points by something else, we'll use clarity. Again, the click of a mouse. Now suddenly we're seeing, the relationship between price, carat, and some interesting things here. One thing, we do sometimes, and there's many options that are kind of built in. We can also use facet rows or facet columns to kind of break it down into more, another variables here. This is basically ideal, premium, very good. It's kind of a level of the cut, if I'm not mistaken. Another quick thing that we often do is I think, you see here, I'm going to follow. I put slides. I gave slides to Roy, so eventually he's going to post up pretty much everything I did in a PDF, so you'll be able to kind of reconstruct it if you want. But I'm going to show you one other. So here in the class, we often do price versus clarity. I'm going to turn these other off, just so you can kind of see, the typical thing we like to teach them is price versus clarity, and this is increasing clarity, right? But the average price is going down, of course, and we all know why. Yeah. Sure. Right. It's because and there, I mean, honestly, my personal opinion is you can do it different ways, right? But for and we've only done it for the core MBA quant class for 2 years now. It's just really reducing their learning curve because we get it inside of a web application. They're very quickly able to do things. And then if you want, and let me kind of go beyond that. So I'm just showing you visualization. We've also built within Shiny App a lot more. So I'm still haven't got there, but I'm going to show you the linear regressions in there, logistic regression, some machine learning. We've got everything in there. So it's not just the visualization aspects. I think that's kind of, yeah. You had a question? Yeah, so this, I mean, it's kind of, that's the other thing I really wanted to mention is, in some ways, this is kind of like a gateway drug. So what we would love to do is bring them into R, right? And this is actually built on top of R. So very quickly, if you wanted to do some additional manipulations, you can import these libraries straight into RStudio, or you can also go to right here, which is a console, and just start coding everything you've done, but referencing it and just writing R code. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so, yeah, and just to be clear, so this is just a Shiny app that's running on top. Radiant itself, the code is using all the other libraries you're talking about. So it's not reinventing anything. It's just kind of shielding them from having to do that. Right? Hannah. This is, so if you go through the installation process, this will run locally within RStudio. So you'll launch it as a local, you can see it's running on a local host on a port and you're up and running, right? You could also host this external, you can do that. I'm not gonna do that. You're not connecting to my desktop, no. Yeah, but yeah, so on John's point, he's using a ton of libraries underneath. So if you install it, you're gonna see everything's gonna be, there's nothing reinvented, it's just really made quite nice here. So here again, you can kind of see the omitted variable problem, and I can kind of just add on color to this plot, and again, you can start to make some system. Let me kind of switch gears, and I'll go into regression because this is where we really didn't want them to spend a ton of time figuring out how to do a regression in Excel or in R or however else that you guys you choose. So here we can do a response variable as price. And I'll just kind of select those four. I have to now click a button, of course, and I've got the regression output. Again, very easy. We can see that. We can add different things that are already kind of built in, sum of squares, the VIF, RMSE. This is very easy to do. Another thing you can do, and this is kind of one thing that all of us teach is do some type of regression diagnostics. So I just need to go to the plot tab. I hit dashboard plots. And suddenly I'm looking at everything I need to know, right? It's just so easy, right? So I mean, I'm selling you on how easy this could be for MBAs, right? Yeah. Yeah, obviously we don't like the residuals versus fitted here. So if it's a matter of going in, to some extent within Radiant, you can manipulate things. So you don't have to go into coding itself. So it's everything that Vincent had built in. So I can do transformations. I can take the two quantitative variables here, run a transformation to applying the log function. We'll do that. I'll store those. You're going to see it adds the two columns to the data that we're already using. I'll go back to the regression function. And now I'm going to use the log price. Use those same variables. I'll have to scroll down now to get log caret. Re-estimate. Now check out my dashboard plots. They're going to update. Looks a lot better, right? So again, like I'm selling you on how quickly I'm doing this, right? So yeah, so that's a great question. So and remember, this is kind of coming about very organically. He started with his research for marketing decisions. Then we brought in quant. Now he's doing customer analytics. And so at this point, every month you might find new features. We now have linear regression, logistic, naive Bayes, neural networks, decision trees, comparing models. All this is more or less kind of built in. Things that I needed to teach to cover the quant, decision analysis, those type of trees, and simulation ability. So we can actually, I'm gonna give you an example of that really quickly. So for me to run a quick simulation, if I just wanted a normal random variable, so bear with me here. I'm gonna create 2 normal random variables with mean 400, standard deviation 125. I'm gonna add that. The syntax, is kind of arbitrary because it's whatever Vincent wanted to do, but here I'm just creating 2 random variables that I want to simulate. In terms of functions, so again, think of an MBA, I could tell someone that their demand is just gonna be the sum of 2 random variables, and I'm interested on whether or not you're gonna stock out. And so we could say, is stock out just another variable? Is it the case that demand happens to be greater than, let's say 900 since the mean is 800, right? Very simple. I haven't spent a lot of time. We'll just simulate that and we'll see the answer, right? So here for 1,000 simulates, demand indeed came near 800. It also gave us a measure of the standard deviation. And that's of course x1 plus x2. And it also gave me here roughly 29% of the time, right? So although in the course I discuss random variables and distributions a lot, I can instantly start giving them some intuition here, right? When we run simulations, it also generates the simulation data. So since we have a visualization tool, I can go right back to data, pick the SimDat, and look at what it looked like. So here, I'm gonna do distribution of the demand, right? And in fact, if I want to fill it by the stockout condition, I'm looking at exactly what just happened in 1 minute, maybe, something like that. So this is kind of the ability to, yeah. Export it, so it has, I'm just like a salesman. I get nothing for this, right? So I'm selling this for society's, the greater good, right? Yeah, Vincent has done just a fantastic job, and he's thought of everything. So anything you do in here, you can click this button and it puts it into a report. So if you had students do, let's say, 15 different things as part of an analysis of data, eventually you can have an exceptional report. I'll just give you an example. So clicking here, yeah, you just wait. Yeah, it's the service contract. I'm gonna put you on it. So you can see it goes to a report screen. And again, this is kind of under the R tab. Everything for his report, because he's a R advocate, it's all R markdown. So many of you guys are probably already familiar with that. You can code it that way, and it also happens to show you the code that in terms of radiant functions itself, what you would have to call. So you can generate that. I know Roy gave me a clear time, so I'm going to just show you an example of a full report. Let me take a step back. Everything I've done is going to be made available from Roy online, so you can kind of work through at your own pace. Secondly, Vincent also made a lot of tutorial videos. So if you go to the original website, you can watch how to do every single thing. And this is his baby, so he took a lot of time. So this is an example where you're trying to predict whether, he has a kind of a data set for consumer purchases, whether or not they would buy a DVD. And so he goes through a whole tutorial, which is like 12 minutes long, doing everything you need to do within Radiant to kind of generate this. And as he's doing it, he's making a report. So he keeps clicking that button, which sends it to the report screen. Ultimately, you have something like this. So this is what an MBA student taking customer analytics, what they might turn in. So you can see the data description, they do a logistic regression, they look at some odds ratios, kind of cruising down, then they estimate a neural network. And this one he's going to compare a bunch of different models. Does a neural network analysis, a decision tree, all of this, generating the report, and then eventually he gets down to comparing the different models. Yeah, it's fantastic. Then they click save report as a PDF, and they submit it to the TA. Right? Yeah, and the other part that he was really adamant about is the fact that this is, if you save the state, this is reproducible, right? So it's not that you can just kind of, hey, here's my PDF. No, we can demand that they send us the state file so we can see the work that they did. So let me leave it at that. I know there's a lot I threw at you, but really it was just so you can kind of see the potential and how it might fit into the different cohorts that you guys are teaching. So
Is it written in Python?
No, this is everything's in R. Yeah.
Even with the web benefit?
This is Shiny, so he's leveraging an R library called Shiny. It's pretty nice. I mean, at this day and age, everyone expects people to feel very comfortable with web apps, right?
But the install is not very onerous.
No, install, he's got it down to, within RStudio, just one line. And so that will then install every library that it needs. And, yeah. He's working, our IT department is working on an actual installer, but I don't think that's quite available yet. Yeah, I mean, it installs as an add-in, so in that sense, yeah. I don't think you can do it right. I think you can do it from just R, but the installer is as R. So the answer to your question, if you just want R, I think you can do that. Yeah, yeah, but for some reasons, because again, this is mostly for MBAs, we we erred on the other side. Uh-huh.
So just to access our feed for very actually feeds for 2 years from undergrad, then maybe we can pick up after like the recap, the test plan. On the second semester, it's pretty awful. So coding and any content, it's probably asked to look at one. So it's like
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. I teach the MS in Business Analytics, kind of the first course. I make them code in RStudio, and that's kind of, they need to know how to do it. I still use Radiant, and the reason is because on the back end, we're going to ask them to actually deliver some type of decision support tools for the capstone project partners, and I wanted them to see kind of what one would look like. So Radiant is kind of that. It is that, right, for people who want to do very, simple analysis of statistical. Well, in some sense, it can do anything, but as a situation becomes a little more complex, you got to get out of Radiant and actually do code, right? So, but for basic statistics, you can get it done. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Yeah.